What is up, Jabroni JJ back here from Pure Bets, talking a little college basketball. It's today's date. Fucking eyelashes are itchy. Saturday, March 4th. You love to see it, but at the same time, you hate to see it. Folks, baseball right around the corner with 3.5 weeks from baseball starting. March Madness is in 2 weeks. What a time to be alive, right? What a time to be alive. And I'm, over the last few days, starting to squeeze some wins, some type of wins that I haven't squeezed all season long. It's been nice. It's nice to get games that kind of fall your way, especially the 50-50s, right, with how late games end. So it's nice to ride a little momentum. I think we went between me and Holden 2-1, both shows, Saturday 2-1, Sunday 2-1. We should have known, right? When Holden was talking up Illinois at a high level, we should have known to get the fade guns out. But yeah, no, all in all, traction is starting to form at the right time of the season, right? As we get the conference tournaments and March Madness. So, all good all around in that front. Got 3 games going to talk through here. And we will call it a day. Obviously, I'm sure folks have seen it. Been a little busy over the last week or so, dealing with some birthday festivities. Another more birthday festivities tonight, and then it's over. I'm actually happy it's almost over. Obviously, look, once you get into your, I'd argue, when you're younger, they mean a lot, and when you're in your teens, they don't mean as much. Then when you get in your 20s, they mean a decent amount because you end up going out with your friends for your birthday and whatnot. But yeah, no, it's felt like a little much this year, but is what it is. Could be worse problems to have, that's for sure. I hope everybody's doing well. What's up, Ray? I hope everybody's doing well. Just talked to my father. He is doing well. So maybe he'll join me for a show or two. I know he wants to do some shows for March Madness. So stay tuned for that. But I guess without further ado, we will just run right into it. So a few games I like today. I'll give them to you a few different ones, but I'll give you more of the mainstream games. Then my favorite bet of the day, which is a game at night. All right, so we'll start with Texas A&M and Alabama. Look, I debated a few different ways because I felt like I had some decent edges at this number in a few different directions. But I landed on just going the full game over at 152.5. Look, I've said this before, like, I'm a fan of Alabama, actually in the March tournament, when they're like a dark horse, right? Because we know how frequently they shoot threes. They get hot at the right time, grab your ankles. But I'm not a big fan of teams like Alabama when they're in one of the favorites to win it all. And I say that primarily because, look, we know under Oates, this team just fires threes at crazy will. And I'll be honest, this year, like, their percentages aren't that great. Like, I liked this team when they were firing threes at will, when as a team they were shooting like 37, 38%. I mean, as a team, they're shooting 34.5%. Now, granted, they fire a ton of threes, so obviously that impacts the number. But, they do have some snipers, of course. But I think they only have one guy that shoots over 40% from three. In years past, they've had a few guys that were shooting 40% from three. So a little bit different makeup on this team. But again, it's not just the threes with them, right? They shoot. They play very good defense on a per possession basis. And the big difference for this year with them has been their ability to get to the free throw line. They've done that really well this year compared to years past. So yeah, maybe a different Alabama team in that sense, because if the three ball's not falling, they can find ways to get to the free throw line. But I'm honestly not a huge fan of this team coming into the tournament. I just know with teams like this, the three ball will fail them in 1 to 2 games en route to a championship. And can they make up for it? Will the free throws make up for it in that sense? Again, they are getting to the line a good amount. But needless to say, this matchup with A&M, for me, there's a few different things that I like. Now, I don't think they've seen each other this year. But it's an interesting clash. A&M does not play slow by any means. So this game will play a lot like a track meet. And here's what I look at it. Yeah, it's a big number. But look at it from a few different angles, right? Like, Alabama obviously plays pretty elite defense, but they're also quite handsy, and they're also quite vulnerable on the offensive glass. They're vulnerable on the offensive glass because any team that runs is going to be vulnerable on the offensive glass, right? Because everybody's looking to get out in transition. A&M has tremendous edges in their ability to get to the free throw line and their ability to grab offensive rebounds. To me, that's going to point to a lot of easy stickbacks and a lot of easy free throws or massive free throw attempts. Now, again, Alabama doesn't foul all that often, but they haven't seen a team like A&M that gets to the line as frequently. Alabama has a lot of different clever and creative ways to get guys going towards the basket. And again, they have a lot of guys that polish up things on the rim, around the rim as well. It just makes a lot of sense. You're going to get a lot of easy transition, whether transition or not transition, half court baskets on the A&M side. Now on the Alabama side, yeah, they have some edges themselves. A&M gives up a ton of 3-point attempts per field goal attempts. I mean, and this data is obviously relevant from KenPom, but Alabama fires and A&M allows teams to fire. And again, I'm not as confident in Alabama's snipers from an efficiency standpoint, but you're going to tell me a team's going to let them shoot threes. Opportunity is going to be there for Bama to splash threes in today at a pretty decent level. And again, even Alabama, like this is a team that's better on the offensive glass than they've been in years past. And A&M's terrible at defending there. And A&M is also quite handsy defensively. So this could be a game where it's a lot of whistle stopping for fouls, a lot of free throws, a lot of easy putbacks in the offensive glass, and then inject Alabama's pace into this. Wouldn't surprise me if this game touches the 160s. Just feel like we got a short number overall in a spot where, yeah, look, obviously really poor shooting. You get numbers, obviously if this game ends out and both teams shoot 38% from the field, yeah, not getting there. And Ray, look, I've always been a Buzz Williams fan. I'm sure you remember him in his Marquette days. I know he went to Tech as well. But I've always been a Buzz Williams guy. I will say this for a Buzz Williams team. They don't shoot the three ball at all well. And Buzz Williams teams typically shoot the three ball really well. It's usually how he builds his offense. But also it goes to show you how he's willing to adapt to the players he has. He doesn't have the snipers that he normally does. And I want to be clear. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you I love everything about A&M. But relatively speaking, they're a team that plays pretty efficient offense. They're definitely underrated defensively. They do aim to slow the game down, but they have no problem running with teams that want to run. Obviously, in their gym, you do worry that this team tries to slow the game down. I just don't necessarily think it's going to matter all that much. Again, look, I think, yeah, you get 38% shooting from both teams, and the refs let them play, and they're not calling fouls. Yeah, this game's going to soar under. I just think we get a happy medium where if you get a 43, 44, 45% shooting game from both teams collectively, the refs are calling it how it should, which is these teams are handsy. I think you're going to flirt very close to the number. And again, you get a good shooting game from both these teams. This game will soar over. So I really like the spot over 152.5. I think we got a decent edge there at that number. So that was where I fired. What's up, Mark? JJ, I bet A&M moneyline, Auburn moneyline, UCLA. So I don't mind the A&M bet specifically. I'll be honest, I don't love it. Call me indifferent. Look, if Alabama is going to stick threes today, A&M is going to find it hard to keep pace. But A&M will. I'll be honest with you. It would surprise me if Alabama shot better than A&M today because A&M just has a tremendous advantage getting to the stripe and a tremendous advantage grabbing offensive rebounds today. So it should cause a lot of issues for Bama inside, and A&M should get a lot of easy putbacks and easy baskets under the rim, while Alabama tries to keep up in a little bit of a different manner, hoisting up threes. But at the same time, we know Bama in any instance can hit them. So I don't mind that. UCLA, I've already said this, like they're my favorite team to win the tournament. Not saying they will. I don't necessarily love the future odds on them right now. But they make a lot of sense. They're, to me, the most complete team in basketball. They have the studs. They play elite defense. They can run with teams. They can slow the games down. They're very well coached. So, yeah, UCLA, I don't mind grabbing them necessarily in any really instance. I mean, Arizona is going to be an interesting test for them. But, overall, I don't mind that play. Late game hammer as well, if you will, and if folks that like that. Out of all of them, though, what did you get Auburn at? Because let me see here. So you have Auburn money line. I mean, would you get that, like minus 160? Tennessee's another interesting team, right? They were pretty trendy last year, right? A team that plays really slow out of the SEC. It just plays really good defense, but they kind of lack the offensive efficiencies. But to make up for that, they move the ball really well, right? Like if you watch their offense, Tennessee specifically, just a lot of ball movement. And so kudos, to Barnes, obviously taking that team from where he has. But again, a team like Tennessee, much like Virginia, you worry about if they're running into a team that's just making shots, right? Because they don't exactly have the offensive firepower to keep up with teams if games start to shoot out. They're an awful 3-point shooting team. They're honestly not a great they're not a great team inside the arc either. And it's not like they get to the free throw line a lot. They're just a team that has a recipe in the dance to just have a team shoot the lights out and they're drawing dead. Now, granted, they were going through a streak where they're playing their roughest basketball of the season, clean things up a bit with 2 decent wins, and obviously coming off a big Arkansas win. I do lean in your favor there with Auburn. I think Auburn's a tougher matchup for them overall. And let's be honest, like when these two played a while back, the score was like 88 points total. So it's pretty clear that Tennessee dictated their pace. And under Bruce Pearl, I'll be honest, like this Auburn team's not playing at the pace we're used to seeing them play. I'm not saying they're playing slow, but usually you expect Auburn to be running up and down the floor. Auburn's playing some of their worst basketball in this large stretch of games. They've had some close L's too, right? So it's not totally fair. I do think it's a decent matchup overall, and you likely get a better performance out of Auburn this go around versus the 46-43 performance. But Cole, I'll lean Auburn. So I can't bet Tennessee in that spot. So definitely would be an Auburn or nothing for me. And then I do lean like the UCLA as well. So don't mind that. Also leaning Arkansas -4. Okay, so Arkansas is playing Kentucky. I don't necessarily like to mess with Kentucky this time of year. I do like to fade them in the tournament because they just, under Calipari, have just been notorious choke artists in that tournament. But this time of year, Calipari usually has his guys coached pretty well. And, they've gone through a decent streak after dropping the one against Vanderbilt. Definitely would prefer the other side there. Kentucky specifically, not Arkansas. All right. So, but I wouldn't call that a strong conviction at all, Andrew. So I wouldn't let that deter you. Just giving you my thoughts. All right. So next game up. All right. So Oklahoma and TCU. Interesting little matchup, right? So for me, TCU, and I've said this before about them, like, yeah, they have decent ranking and yeah, like they fit the eye test in certain ways. Call it a hot take, call it what you want. I think TCU is like one of the biggest fades in the tournament, like at every level. Granted, of course, a team like TCU can win a few games and stick it up my ass. A team that is absolutely abysmal shooting the 3 ball makes it very tough to win consecutive games without issue. Like if you look, like TCU had a pretty soft out of conference schedule, one of the softest in D1 actually, especially for Power 5 teams. So like they were able to pick up a bunch of wins against scrubs earlier in the year, and then they had a few big wins that, like, at Baylor is a pretty big win for them. Goes without saying, right? But like look at this team, right? Like since they beat Baylor in January 4th, the most wins in a row they've had was 2. And I know, you can create your own narratives around anything you'd like, but teams that cannot shoot the 3 ball at all, and I'm not saying like a team that shoots them poorly, like they are dreadful shooting the 3. And if you watch them play, like it's very frustrating if you bet them and you just randomly see them keep hoisting up threes. I mean, this team shoots 29% as a team from 3. That is just abysmal. Like they have one 40% guy and he doesn't even shoot a lot of volume. So like, yeah, they just have abysmal. And like, to me, the game plan, if you're playing TCU, should be just let them shoot from out there. The shooters are terrible. So I think you're starting to see that in conference play. That's kind of what's been happening. Now, granted, they played really well against Texas, squeezed a nice win against Tech as well. But now they travel on the road to play Oklahoma, who, let's be honest, Oklahoma's been struggling in their own way, but nobody's picking Oklahoma to do anything. And I'm not saying people are like high on TCU either, but they've been a fun team in certain ways. But to me, they're a complete fade in the tournament. In relation to why Oklahoma or why the bet in this spot, I do like TCU team total under here. So it's 72.5, which should have been decent vig too. Hold on. Yeah, it was minus 110 DK. I think it was also minus 110 FanDuel, so I don't think it really matters where you get it. Oh, you know what? Before I do, let me at least type the other bet. So it was Alabama versus A&M versus Texas A&M over 152.5. Oh, yes, I should type him. Hey, it's Killer Picks. I've always seen Levy. She was a little bit with Bama over first 2 days as always. Yeah, you got it, Liam. Yeah, it was the over 152.5 for that game. So in regards to Oklahoma TCU, Oklahoma's a snail, and they're a snail that plays really good defense. And they guard the three pretty well, which I don't think matters as much in this matchup. But they're also pretty stingy inside. I know a lot of TCU's points come from inside, but I will be completely honest. There is really, in my opinion, not much difference between these two teams. Like I know Oklahoma has a much worse record than TCU, but that really has pure to do with the out of conference schedule. Because like even their conference records, like what is TCU 10-8, Oklahoma is 4-13, which I get it. Like it's easy to say, like, oh well, there's that big disparity. I mean, I don't know. I don't look at like just pound for pound. I don't look at these teams as that different. I want to be clear. TCU's a better team, but they're not like this disparity in record different. Oklahoma's had a relatively tough schedule. Actually, I'm looking here. Toughest schedule in all of D1, Oklahoma Sooners. So TCU's had a tough overall schedule as well because the Big 12 is being pumped this year in certain ways. Arguably maybe the best conference in all of D1 this year. But again, the non-conference schedule is tough to stomach with TCU. In relation to this matchup, though, Oklahoma at home is really stingy defensively. I know they gave up 74 to Tech a few games ago, and Kansas kind of pushed them around. But this is a tough team to score on. Like you're going to need to be extremely efficient if you're going to go over 70 against Oklahoma, especially in their own gym. And here's what I look for, right? Like where Oklahoma struggles defensively is that they let up a lot of easy putbacks on the offensive glass. They're one of the worst teams in D1 against that. But, I'm talking on the offensive end for Oklahoma. I think defensively, there are some things that stick out positively about Oklahoma, and then there's some things that stick out negatively about Oklahoma. But in relation to this matchup, TCU is just going to have to score really well inside, and TCU relies on tremendous ball movement. We've already referenced this because when you don't shoot the three ball well, you better be moving the ball well inside because teams are just going to let you shoot out there and stuff the insides on you. Oklahoma is one of the better teams in D1 at stopping ball movement and forcing teams to make tough shots. And TCU is just not very good offensively. So I think they're going to be a little difficult for TCU to get there. Now, TCU is going to try to inject pace into this game. They play really fast. Oklahoma plays slow. In their gym, I expect Oklahoma to try to control pace here. And look, let's be honest. Oklahoma wants to win this game in the 60s, right? They don't want to be in a track meet with a team like TCU. So I think Oklahoma does all they can to slow this game down. And look, TCU would have to shoot, upwards of 47, 48% or find themselves going to the free throw line a lot, which again is not something they do, at a great level either. So just love the spot. Love the spot. I think we get 45, 46% field goal shooting from TCU or worse. I think this game stays in the 60s. On the Oklahoma end, the added pace from TCU could result in Oklahoma scoring more points. That was why I preferred not to bet the under in the game. But I also didn't want to bet Oklahoma because Oklahoma is just an unconfident team. Like when you're betting a team to win a game, especially when the spread is as small as this game is, there is a part of confidence in how games play out late. And while TCU has struggled at times and they haven't won 2 games in a row since the beginning of January, at least this team knows how to close a game out. I do have some concerns over Oklahoma's ability to do that. So I do think this game plays relatively light as long as we don't get lights out shooting. I think this game falls under this number on the TCU end, which is 72.5. Got that minus 110, and that's either you can get that at FanDuel or DraftKings. So TCU team total under 72.5, minus 110. Last but not least, my favorite bet of the day, and I'm sure you folks might find this maybe interesting or whatnot. This is not a numbers play by any means. This is purely a coach's play. So Delaware hosting Northeastern. Blue Hens have had a decent year. I wouldn't consider this one of Delaware's better years or best years. They were a better team or a much better team last year. but still, again, formidable. Okay. They go against Northeastern here at the start of the CAA tournament. And look, let's be honest. Northeastern had seen better days in relation to um, playing Delaware. I think was it a big blowout earlier in the year? I know that there was a close game as well, but I'm trying to see if I don't know. These games played relatively close. So they look at the spread here; it's 5. I know Delaware's playing their best ball of the season. Well, not best ball of the season, but they came out with 3 late wins. But they played real West dog shit teams. The UNC Wilmington was a good win for them. But then they play NCATT, A&T, and then Elon, which to me doesn't mean anything. And then Northeastern ends the season with 2 losses to semi-decent teams, and then just got blown out against Hofstra. The handicap on this is purely coach. So Bill Cohen, this time of year, is still one of the best coaches in this conference. And yes, this isn't his typical Northeastern team. Typically with his Northeastern teams, he likes to play with a little bit of tempo. He likes to fire off the 3 ball. He actually usually has really good 3-point shooting percentages as a team. I think it was it 2020 or 2021 when he had like 40% as a team they were shooting from the 3-point line, which is like crazy when you think about it, right? But this year in particular, it's been a little different, or not 40, but it was like, I think it was like 38 point something or 39%. They were just a team that was blistering from 3, especially for a mid-major. Obviously, offensive efficiencies, maybe it's a recruiting issue. I don't know specifically, but this is not the same talent he's used to having, and this has been a rough year for Northeastern again. But I know that he coaches well. I know he game plans well. Against Delaware, this team's played them twice already. Yeah, sure, conference tournament, things get elevated. But I'd argue that that's a strength of Cohen, right? So Northeastern, as a bad team last year, snuck a win out in this tournament. I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but 5.5 feels like such a huge number in this spot for a guy I trust to have his guys prepared for a conference tournament. And again, while the talent's really not there, matchup-wise, Northeastern certainly can match up pretty well with Delaware. Northeastern has a nice advantage on the offensive glass to be able to get some stickbacks. And again, like you look at this game and how it breaks down, like it's not like there's anything that sticks out to you that Delaware can do that can really pile on. It doesn't surprise me these 2 teams played close this year. And again, in the most meaningful game coming for these 2 teams, I feel pretty good overall. Getting 5.5 in this spot. Again, you look back at the way that the 2 games played this year. It's been a nice back and forth both times around. And what's interesting with Northeastern is usually Cohen relies on a few guys to get the job done for him and doesn't use a deep bench. I mean, he's got one of the deepest benches in D1 this year. He is scattering players in and out. I do have some concerns over Northeastern's inability to hold on to the basketball. Delaware at times does press and at times does force a decent amount of turnovers, and Northeastern's very vulnerable to losing possessions in that manner. But again, relatively well-balanced. Northeastern does not rely on getting to the free throw line to score points. So I think overall we get a decent performance from Northeastern shooting. This game probably plays back and forth. Northeastern could potentially sneak a win here. Not saying they will, but I do think this line is just a typical math line based on how these 2 teams have performed all year. But matchup-wise, these 2 teams match up really well. Wouldn't surprise me if Northeastern wins outright. And I do think we have a nice coaching advantage with Cohen, who's very familiar with coaching this time of year. And Northeastern finds their way into the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, not with this team, they won't. But, when they're typically an average team in this conference, they find their way into the tournament by winning this tournament. So I think they're going to be super live tonight. 5.5 is a big number. So, yeah, I like Northeastern tonight against Delaware. Bad year all around, coming off some bad losses. Delaware's coming off some big wins. I think it's influencing this number and love the matchup. So, yeah, Northeastern plus 5.5 against Delaware. It's my favorite bet of the night or favorite bet of the whole slate. Northeastern plus 5.5 versus Delaware. A lot of folks on Aggies. Yeah, I mean, I'm not betting the Aggies today, Kirk, but I do like there to be points. I can't speak to, why or why not people would be on the Aggies or whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, obviously that line shifted a bit. So I don't disagree there that people are likely on them, or at least money is on them. In regards to Texas, so man, I'll tell you this: like matchups like Texas and Kansas, like I rarely bet these games. These are like the highest priority games on the slates. Where that's where you typically get your sharpest lines, right? Yeah, to me the line's relatively fair, right? I mean, half point off maybe in one or two directions, but nothing crazy. Um, I, I could break down the game, but I'm not even going to give you it. It would just be talking you into both sides. So I'll save you the air. But call it. I have that line fair, so I wouldn't bet Texas myself. But I can't blame people for wanting to bet the biggest marquee game on the entire basketball Saturday. All right, so 3 bets, folks. We got an over, and under, and a dog. I wish you all the best of luck today with all your bets. As always, gamble responsibly. Tomorrow, I'll be back with another college basketball show with Whole Den. That'll be on the Run Pure Sports channel. And then we have our NASCAR show, which was pretty good last week. I mean, granted, certain crashes were fun, not in a fun way. That's sarcasm. But that's NASCAR, right? I mean, I think if you expect to have your guys stay on 4 tires all race long every week, that's just not going to happen. But yeah, best of luck, everybody. Wish you all the best. Stay safe. As always, run pure, and I will catch you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.